She answered a wrong number call. Days later, she met him on a date. At 11:50 p.m., Chloe Bennett's phone rang from somewhere under a pile of blankets, library receipts, and one paperback romance novel she had sworn she was not emotionally attached to. She was 25 years old, exhausted, and lying sideways on her couch, with one sock on and the other missing somewhere in the apartment. For a second, she considered ignoring the call. Then it rang again. Chloe groaned, reached blindly under the blanket, and answered without checking the number. "Hello?" A man's voice came through the speaker. Low, tired, strained in a way that made her sit up before she understood why. "Dad." Chloe froze. The man continued, barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry." A pause. "I didn't make it back in time today either." Chloe blinked into the dark living room. The voice on the phone sounded like someone trying very hard not to fall apart. "I know I keep saying tomorrow," he said. "I know you're tired of hearing it. I thought if I built everything fast enough, I could keep us safe." He exhaled shakily. "But now you're in that hospital bed, and I'm still in conference rooms." Chloe's heart tightened. She looked at the number again. She did not recognize it. The man stopped. Chloe swallowed. "I'm so sorry." There was silence on the other end. Then she said gently, "I think you called the wrong number." The silence grew longer. Then the man let out one tired, embarrassed laugh. "Oh." Another pause. "That's terrible." Chloe pressed one hand over her mouth, not sure whether she was supposed to apologize or hang up. The man cleared his throat. "I just confessed my emotional failures to a complete stranger." Chloe looked down at her oversized sweatshirt and the half-eaten bowl of cereal on her coffee table. "If it helps, I'm not very intimidating." "That helps surprisingly little. I'm also not your dad." "Yes." I gathered that part. His voice was dry, but she could hear the exhaustion underneath it. Chloe leaned back against the couch. "I can hang up." "No." The answer came too quickly. Then he softened. "I mean, you don't have to stay on the phone. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. It's okay. It's really not. At least I'm not an insurance hotline." For half a second, there was nothing. Then he laughed. A real laugh this time, small, startled, and clearly unexpected. "True," he said. "That would have been worse. Much worse. They would have transferred you 3 times before validating your grief." Another laugh, softer now. "What's your name, stranger who is not my father?" "Chloe." "Ryan." No last names, no jobs, no carefully polished introductions. Just Ryan, just Chloe, and the strange safety of midnight, when people sometimes tell the truth because morning feels too far away to punish them for it. Chloe Bennett worked at a public library in Portland, Oregon. She loved quiet corners, old book smell, handwritten notes tucked into returned novels, and elderly patrons who pretended they only came in for newspapers, but really stayed because someone smiled at them. She was warm, thoughtful, and introverted in the way that made people assume she was shy when she was actually just deciding whether the world deserved her energy. 3 months earlier, her boyfriend had ended their relationship over brunch. He said she was too cautious, too serious, too content with small things. Then he suggested she try putting herself out there. Chloe had responded by putting herself back in bed for 2 days and deleting every dating app on her phone. Her best friend kept trying to arrange blind dates. Chloe kept saying no. Love Lately felt like a book everyone insisted was wonderful, but no one could explain without spoilers. Ryan Foster, though Chloe did not know it, was 33 and the CEO of a software company that had made him successful before he had figured out how to rest. He was brilliant, focused, uncomfortably good at solving problems, except the ones that mattered most. His father had been hospitalized after a cardiac episode 2 weeks earlier, and Ryan had spent those 2 weeks promising he would leave work early, then failing, again and again. Tonight, after another emergency board call, he had stepped into the quiet parking garage, opened his father's contact, and somehow pressed the wrong number, or maybe his hands were just shaking more than he wanted to admit. "So," Chloe said after a quiet moment, "do you often call strangers to apologize?" "First time." "Bold choice." "I'm expanding my communication strategy." "Very innovative." "I've been told I'm disruptive." That sounds like something a man says when he owns too many chargers. Ryan paused. I do own too many chargers. I knew it. The conversation should have ended there. It didn't. Ryan apologized at least 4 more times. Chloe rejected all 4 apologies with increasingly ridiculous logic. He told her his father was in the hospital, though not the details. She told him she worked somewhere quiet, though not where. He admitted he was tired. She admitted she had cried earlier because a fictional dog died in a book, and she was still angry at the author. For 15 minutes, they became 2 voices in the dark. No faces, no expectations. Only the kind of honesty that happens when neither person knows enough to judge the other. Ryan's voice slowly lost its sharp edge. Chloe stopped feeling like the call was an accident she should escape. At one point, she asked, "Did you want your dad to forgive you tonight?" Ryan was quiet. Then he said, "Maybe I wanted him to tell me I still had time." Chloe looked toward the dark window of her apartment. "Then maybe tomorrow, don't call him from a parking garage." Another silence. Not offended. Listening. "Go see him," she said softly. "Even if you're late. Especially if you're late." Ryan breathed out. "You're very direct for someone who answered a wrong number." "I work with overdue books. I understand consequences." That made him laugh again, but this time, when the laughter faded, something calmer remained. Finally, Chloe glanced at the clock. 12:11 a.m. She should sleep. He should probably stop talking to strangers. Neither seemed eager to hang up. Ryan spoke first. "I should let you go. Probably. Chloe? Yes? Thank you." His voice had changed. It was still tired, still restrained, but less alone. "Tonight." He paused, like the sentence cost him something. "You helped me more than you know." Chloe held the phone closer. She did not know what to say to that, so she chose the truth. "I hope you make it to him tomorrow, Ryan." "I will." This time, he sounded like he meant it. "Good night, wrong number." A small smile touched his voice. "Good night, Chloe." The call ended. Chloe sat in the quiet living room, staring at the screen until it went dark. She had no last name, no photo, no idea who he was, only his voice. Only the odd warmth left behind by 15 minutes that should never have happened. Across the city, Ryan stood in the hospital parking garage with his phone still in his hand. For the first time all day, he did not open his email. He turned around, walked back through the hospital doors, and went to see his father. 3 days after the wrong number call, Chloe Bennett was standing in front of her bathroom mirror, holding 2 different earrings and regretting every choice that had led her there. Her best friend, Madison, sat on the closed toilet lid like a courtroom judge. "You are going." I answered one mysterious phone call, and suddenly the universe thinks I'm emotionally available. The universe didn't schedule this date. I did. That makes it worse. Madison pointed at the blue earring. "Wear that one." Chloe looked at her reflection. "I don't even believe in blind dates." "You also don't believe in horoscopes, but you still blamed Mercury when your toaster broke." That toaster had bad energy. Madison stood and took the other earring from Chloe's hand. "It's one dinner, 20 minutes. If he's awful, text me the word pineapple, and I'll call with an emergency." "What emergency?" "I'll invent one. I'm gifted under pressure." Chloe sighed. She had said no to every setup for 3 months. But Madison knew how to weaponize concern. The man was supposedly kind, stable, successful, and not the type who sends gym mirror selfies, which Madison considered a major selling point. So Chloe agreed. 20 minutes, she told herself. She would stay 20 minutes, eat half a salad, be polite, then go home to her books and the safe predictability of fictional men who at least had editors. Across town, Ryan Foster was having a similar argument with his younger sister Olivia, except his took place in a hospital hallway where Olivia had cornered him beside a vending machine. "You're going. My father is in the hospital. Our father is currently beating a nurse at gin rummy and flirting with the cardiologist." Ryan glanced toward the room. From inside came his father's triumphant voice. "That's 11 points, young lady." Olivia folded her arms. "He wants you to go." "He said that?" He said, and I quote, "If my son stares at charts any longer, his face will become a spreadsheet." Ryan pinched the bridge of his nose. "I don't have time for this. You have 20 minutes. That's not a date. That's a calendar mistake." Perfect, you love calendars. Ryan gave her a flat look. Olivia smiled sweetly. Her name is Chloe. She works with books. She sounds nice. Please attempt not to discuss quarterly projections. I don't discuss quarterly projections on dates. You once explained server migration over appetizers. It was relevant. To whom? Ryan had no answer. Like Chloe, he made a plan. 20 minutes. Polite conversation. Then he would leave, return to the hospital, and tell Olivia he had made a human effort. That seemed fair. The restaurant was small, warm, and far too romantic for two people planning an early escape. Chloe arrived first, and nearly walked out when she saw candles on the tables. Candles implied hope. Hope required stamina. She had just decided to fake a phone call when a man stopped beside her table. Chloe? She looked up. He was tall, neatly dressed, with dark hair and tired eyes that looked kinder than his formal coat suggested. Ryan? He nodded. Neither recognized the other. Of course they didn't. 3 nights earlier, they had only been voices in the dark. No faces or last names. No photographs, just a wrong number and 15 minutes of honesty neither had expected to remember. Ryan sat across from her. For a moment, they simply looked at each other with the polite terror of strangers who had both been forced into optimism. Chloe spoke first. So, are you here voluntarily? Ryan paused. Legally, yes. She laughed despite herself. My friend said I only had to stay 20 minutes. My sister said the same. That feels like a conspiracy. Possibly a small one. The waitress came by. Chloe ordered tea. Ryan ordered coffee. The waitress left. Silence arrived. Not horrible silence, just first date silence, which always felt like two people trying to assemble furniture without instructions. Chloe reached for her water and nearly knocked over the candle. Ryan caught it. Strong beginning. I'm usually more graceful after minute 12. I'll adjust expectations, she smiled. He smiled back. Something about his dry timing tugged gently at a memory, but Chloe dismissed it. She had been thinking about the wrong number man for 3 days, which was ridiculous. She did not need to start projecting him onto every tired man with decent manners. Ryan, meanwhile, found himself oddly comfortable with her voice. He could not place why. He only knew he liked the way she paused before answering, as if she chose words carefully because she believed they mattered. They talked about safe things at first. Books, rain, bad restaurant lighting. Whether blind dates should come with warning labels. Chloe admitted she worked around books but avoided naming the library. Ryan said he worked in technology but didn't mention he was CEO. Neither wanted the other person reacting to job titles before personality. A few minutes passed. Then a few more. Neither checked the time. Chloe forgot about the pineapple emergency. Ryan forgot about the hospital vending machine and Olivia's smug face. The conversation began to breathe. Chloe told him she liked quiet places. Ryan said quiet places made him realize how noisy his own head was. She looked at him a little longer after that. He quickly picked up his coffee. I promise I'm more cheerful on paper. That sounds like something a tax form would say. Ryan almost laughed into his cup. There are worse comparisons. At least, he paused. The phrase came out before he thought. At least you're not an insurance hotline. Chloe went completely still. Ryan froze too. The restaurant noise dropped away. Chloe slowly lowered her tea. What did you just say? Ryan stared at her. Her voice. Not similar. Not familiar. Hers. The woman who had answered at midnight. The one who had made him laugh when he was too ashamed to breathe. The one who told him to go see his father. He whispered, Chloe? She stared back at him, eyes widening. Ryan? The silence between them changed instantly. It was no longer awkward. It was impossible. Chloe covered her mouth. Oh my gosh. Ryan leaned back, stunned. You're the wrong number. I am not the wrong number. You were the wrong caller. That is technically accurate. You called me Dad. His face flushed. I was under stress. You emotionally confessed to a librarian in pajamas. You never told me about the pajamas. I'm telling you now because I need balance. For one suspended second, neither moved. Then Chloe started laughing. Not polite first date laughing. Real laughing. The kind that made her eyes shine and her shoulders loosen. Ryan laughed too, shaking his head as if the universe had just told a joke specifically at his expense. The waitress returned with bread and stopped, sensing she had interrupted something important. "Everything okay?" Chloe looked at Ryan. Ryan looked at Chloe. Then he said, "Actually, this is going much better than expected." Chloe picked up a piece of bread, still smiling. "My friend gave me 20 minutes. My sister did too." She glanced at her phone. They had already been there 37. Ryan's smile softened. "So?" Chloe tilted her head. "So, do we start over?" She looked at him across the candlelit table, no longer a stranger, and not yet something else. "No," she said gently. "I think we already started." Ryan held her gaze. 3 nights ago, a mistake had found her phone. Tonight, the mistake had taken a seat across from her, and for the first time in months, Chloe did not want to leave after 20 minutes. After discovering that they had already shared the most honest 15 minutes of their lives before ever seeing each other's faces, Ryan and Chloe stopped pretending they were simply trying out a blind date. They started seeing each other because they wanted to, sometimes for dinner or coffee, sometimes for absolutely no reason except that both of them found ordinary days becoming unexpectedly better together. Neither rushed to define what they were. Neither needed to. For now, they were simply two people who no longer felt like strangers. Ryan quickly learned that dating Chloe required flexibility. Libraries suddenly became exciting. Bookstores became dangerous because Chloe insisted on reading the first page of every novel she picked up, and every walk through a park somehow ended with her stopping to admire flowers, squirrels, or particularly determined ducks. One Saturday afternoon, she caught him staring at a shelf of mystery novels. "You don't read fiction, do you?" Ryan looked mildly offended. "I read software documentation. That's not fiction. Sometimes it feels like it." She laughed. "You need help. I've been told." She slipped a novel into his hands. "Homework." He looked at the cover. "It has 500 pages. You own too many chargers. You'll survive." A week later, Ryan decided he would cook dinner. He had watched 3 online recipes, purchased expensive ingredients, organized everything alphabetically. His kitchen looked less like a home and more like a laboratory. "This," he announced confidently when Chloe arrived, "will be impressive." 45 minutes later, smoke alarms strongly disagreed. Chloe rushed into the kitchen waving a dish towel, while Ryan stood in front of a pot that had somehow transformed tomato sauce into something resembling volcanic rock. The alarm finally stopped screaming. Silence settled. Ryan looked at the blackened pan. "I followed every instruction." Chloe peeked inside. "I think the instructions eventually wanted you to lower the heat. I viewed that as a suggestion." She tried not to laugh. She failed. Ryan folded his arms. "I assume you're enjoying this." "I really am." He sighed dramatically. "I founded a software company." "You did." "I manage hundreds of engineers." "You do." "I negotiate multi-million-dollar contracts." She nodded, then pointed at the ruined dinner. "You write code much better than you cook." Ryan stared at her for 2 seconds, then laughed. "I can't even argue." She reached for another pan. "Move over, Mr. CEO. You make that sound like an insult. It's temporary." Together they managed to rescue dinner with sandwiches instead. Ryan quietly admitted they tasted much better than his original plan. As spring slowly arrived, so did a comfortable rhythm. Chloe invited Ryan to the library where she worked. He watched children gather around her during story hour as if she carried sunshine in her pockets. She remembered every child's favorite book, every elderly visitor's name, every teenager pretending not to enjoy reading. Ryan had built successful companies. Chloe built places where people felt welcome. He admired that more than he expected. One afternoon they walked through a nearby park carrying coffee. Ryan watched children fly kites while Chloe sat on a bench reading aloud from the novel she had forced him to buy. "You skipped chapter 3, he said. "You noticed? I've actually been reading it." She looked pleasantly surprised. "I'm creating a monster. I blame the librarian. I'll accept responsibility." Sometimes they read in silence. Sometimes they talked for hours. Ryan told her about his father, how his mother had died when he was 17, how his father had quietly become both parents without ever complaining. "He taught me everything," Ryan said softly. "But somewhere along the way," he looked down at his coffee, I confused providing for him with being there for him. Chloe reached over and gently squeezed his hand. He still gets to see you trying. Ryan nodded. What about your mom? A warm smile crossed Chloe's face. She raised me by herself. She used to read every night. When we couldn't afford vacations, she said books were cheaper than airplanes. Ryan smiled. Smart woman. She believed stories could save lonely people. She looked at him. I think she was right. Ryan realized she wasn't talking only about books anymore. Weeks passed. One evening they wandered through the riverside park after dinner. The city lights shimmered across the water. The spring air carried the scent of blooming trees. Neither wanted the night to end. They stopped beneath an old street lamp. For once, Chloe had nothing funny to say. Ryan looked at her quietly. I've been thinking. That's usually dangerous. It is. He stepped a little closer. So I'm asking before I do anything. She looked into his eyes. There was no uncertainty there. Only kindness. Only patience. May I kiss you? Chloe smiled slowly. You already called the wrong number. Ryan laughed softly. I did. I think. She took one small step toward him. You've earned one right decision. He lifted one hand carefully to her cheek, as though afraid the moment might disappear if he moved too quickly. Then he kissed her. It wasn't dramatic. There were no fireworks, no orchestra, just a quiet, lingering first kiss beneath a street lamp, while the river continued flowing behind them. When they finally pulled apart, Chloe rested her forehead lightly against his. So, Ryan whispered. So? You kiss much better than you cook. He groaned. I was hoping you'd forgotten dinner. Never. I knew that Pan would follow me forever. It absolutely will. They laughed together, and Ryan realized he couldn't remember the last time happiness had felt this uncomplicated. The next morning, Ryan visited his father before work. They played one terrible game of chess. His father teased him about smiling too much. Ryan left, promising to return that evening. But shortly after lunch, his phone rang. The hospital. His father's condition had suddenly worsened. Complications. The doctors needed to perform emergency treatment. Ryan abandoned everything. Meetings, emails, his calendar. For the next several days, time dissolved into hospital corridors, medical updates, sleepless nights, and silent prayers. He barely remembered to eat. He certainly didn't remember his phone. Messages piled up. Missed calls, including several from Chloe. He saw none of them. Chloe waited. One day, then 2, then 4. No calls, no texts, no explanation. The man who had once thanked a stranger for answering a wrong number had suddenly disappeared without a word. And for the first time since that midnight phone call, Chloe wondered if perhaps she had mistaken hope for another wrong connection after all. By the 5th day, Chloe stopped pretending she was only annoyed. She was worried. At first, she told herself Ryan was busy. CEOs were always busy. Hospitals were overwhelming. Family emergencies had a way of swallowing time and turning phones into silent bricks. But Ryan had never been careless with her before. Even when he was running between hospital visits and board calls, he had sent short messages. Dad beat me at chess. I demand an investigation. Your book has too many feelings. I am on page 214. I ate today. Please alert the library board. Then nothing. No answer, no explanation, no dry little joke to prove he was still somewhere reachable. Chloe sat behind the library circulation desk, staring at her phone between returning books. Madison came by during lunch and found her alphabetizing the same stack twice. You're going to the hospital, Madison said. Chloe looked up. I don't know if I should. You care about him. That doesn't give me a right. No, but it gives you a reason. So after work, Chloe went. She carried no flowers, because flowers felt too cheerful for uncertainty. Instead, she brought a paperback novel Ryan had been reading and a sandwich wrapped in brown paper. At the hospital front desk, she gave Ryan's father's name. The receptionist pointed her toward the cardiac floor. Chloe's heart beat harder with every step. Outside the room, she saw Ryan through the glass. He was asleep in a chair. Not really asleep. Collapsed. His head rested against the wall, his jacket folded beneath one elbow, dark circles under his eyes. His shirt was wrinkled. His phone lay dead on the floor near his shoe. Beside him, his father slept under a thin hospital blanket, tubes and monitors quietly keeping time. Chloe stood there for several seconds, anger dissolving into something much softer and more painful. He had not vanished because he stopped caring. He had disappeared because fear had consumed the room. She knocked gently. Ryan woke instantly, startled and disoriented. When he saw her, shame crossed his face before relief could. "Chloe." She stepped inside. "Hi." He reached for his phone, saw it dead, and closed his eyes. "I'm so sorry. You scared me. I know. I called. I know. You didn't answer. I didn't want you to see me like this." The honesty was quiet, raw. Chloe set the sandwich and book on the small table. "Like what?" Ryan looked toward his father. "Useless." The word broke something in her chest. He rubbed both hands over his face. "I can run a company. I can fix systems. I can make decisions other people spend weeks avoiding. But I can't fix this. I can't make him better. I can't control anything in this room." Chloe walked to him slowly. Ryan looked ashamed of his own exhaustion. "I didn't want you to see me weak." She knelt in front of his chair. "Ryan." He looked at her. Her voice was gentle, but firm. "I don't want the version of you that only shows up when he has answers." His eyes shifted. "I like the real person." For a moment, he said nothing. Then she added, softer, "Even when he's scared." Ryan's face crumpled before he could stop it. Chloe reached for his hand. He held on like someone who had been alone far too long in a room full of machines. A weak voice came from the bed. "If this is a private moment, I can pretend to be unconscious again." Ryan turned so fast he nearly knocked over the chair. "Dad?" His father's eyes were open, pale, tired, but awake. Chloe stood quickly, wiping at her own eyes. Ryan moved to the bedside. "Don't sit up. I wasn't planning to dance. You had us terrified. I was bored." Ryan laughed once, shaky and disbelieving. His father looked past him at Chloe. "And you must be the wrong number." Chloe blinked. Ryan froze. "You told him?" His father smiled faintly. "Son, you came to my room 3 nights after a cardiac episode and said, 'I called a stranger instead of you, and she made more sense than my therapist.'" Of course I remembered. Chloe covered her mouth to hide a laugh. Ryan looked mortified. His father pointed weakly at him. "Next time," he paused for breath, "make sure you call wrong again." Ryan lowered his head, laughing through tears. Chloe smiled. "I'll try to keep my phone on." "Good girl," his father murmured. "He needs supervision." "That has been established." Ryan looked between them. "I am still in the room." His father closed his eyes with satisfaction. "Yes, finally." Over the next 24 hours, the danger slowly passed. The doctors adjusted medication, monitored his heart rhythm, and finally gave Ryan the words he had been too afraid to hope for. Stable, improving, still serious, but no longer critical. Ryan slept for 4 full hours because Chloe sat beside him and threatened to call hospital security if he got up to check emails. When he woke, she was reading quietly by the window. His father was awake too, watching them both with the smug peace of a man who had survived partly so he could meddle. Later that evening, he asked Ryan to open the drawer beside the bed. Inside was an old flip phone, scratched, silver, ridiculously outdated. Ryan picked it up. "You still have this?" His father smiled. "That was the phone I used the first time I called your mother after our first date." Ryan looked at it differently then. His father's voice grew softer. "I dialed the wrong number twice before I reached her." Chloe smiled from the chair. "Runs in the family." "It appears so." Ryan's father looked at his son. "I kept it because sometimes the best parts of life begin with someone answering when you didn't even know who you needed." Ryan's throat tightened. His father placed a trembling hand over the phone. "There are calls we make by mistake." He glanced at Chloe. "And then there are calls heaven dials for us." The room went quiet. Ryan looked down at the old phone, then at Chloe, the woman who had answered him at midnight, the woman who came looking when he disappeared, the woman who preferred the real person, even weak and afraid. For once, Ryan did not hide behind a joke. He reached for her hand. Chloe took it. His father closed his eyes, smiling, and in the soft hospital light, Ryan finally understood that the wrong number had never really been wrong at all. 1 year later, Chloe Bennett's phone rang at exactly 11:50 p.m. She was curled up on her couch with a blanket, a half-finished novel, and 2 socks, successfully on both feet, which she considered personal growth. The screen showed Ryan's name. She answered with a smile. "Hello?" A familiar voice came through, warm and slightly nervous. "I'm sorry." Chloe sat up. "I think I called the wrong number." She laughed softly. "Again?" Ryan exhaled. "No." A pause. "This time, I called the right one." Something in his voice made her stand. "Ryan, can you step outside?" Chloe walked to the balcony, heart suddenly racing. The city lights shimmered below, and there, standing on the sidewalk beneath her apartment, was Ryan Foster. No suit jacket, no carefully controlled CEO expression, just Ryan. The man who had once called her by mistake when his heart was breaking. The man who burned dinner, read novels badly, loved his father fiercely, and learned to show up before fear swallowed him whole. In one hand, he held his phone. In the other, a small velvet box. Chloe covered her mouth. Ryan looked up at her and smiled. Then he lowered himself to one knee. "Chloe Bennett," he said through the phone, his voice trembling in her ear and floating up from the street at the same time. "Thank you for answering that night." Tears filled her eyes. "Thank you for staying on the line when I didn't even know how badly I needed someone to listen." He opened the box. The ring caught the balcony light. "Will you answer every call, every silence, every hard day, and every ordinary morning with me for the rest of our lives?" Chloe was already crying. From somewhere behind Ryan, his sister Olivia whispered loudly, "Say yes before he drops the ring." Chloe laughed through tears. Ryan closed his eyes briefly. "I told her to hide. She's terrible at it." "I know." Chloe wiped her cheeks. "Yes," she said. Ryan looked up. "Yes?" "Yes, Ryan Foster, but only on one condition. Anything. If you ever call the wrong number again." He waited. She smiled. "You still have to tell me the story." Ryan's eyes shone. "For the rest of my life." Chloe ran downstairs so fast she nearly forgot her keys. Ryan barely had time to stand before she threw herself into his arms. He held her tightly beneath the streetlight, laughing against her hair as she cried into his shoulder. When he slid the ring onto her finger, her phone remained connected. On the screen, the call timer kept running. Call duration, forever. Every relationship has a beginning. Some start with a smile, some with a handshake, and every once in a while, one begins with a mistake that was never really a mistake at all. If Chloe had ignored that late-night call, and if Ryan had dialed the right number, 2 lonely lives might have continued in parallel, without ever crossing. I think that's what this story reminds us of. Kindness doesn't always change the world overnight, but it can change one person's world forever. Sometimes the smallest decision, like answering a phone you almost ignored, becomes the moment your future quietly begins. Now I'm curious about you. Have you ever had an unexpected conversation with a stranger that stayed with you long after it ended? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. You never know whose experience might give someone else hope. And if stories like this make you believe that love still finds people in the most unexpected ways, I hope you'll subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. We'll keep saving a seat for you, one heartfelt story at a time. Until our next journey together, take care and don't be too quick to hang up on life's little surprises.